and welcome to the Western Athletic Conference. Today we are in Abilene, Texas, in what should be an exciting matchup between the Abilene Christian Wildcats and Seattle U here in a conference matchup. My name's Cohen Carpenter, and I'm here with Maddie Miller, and we've got a pretty good game today that's going to have some playoff implications.
Yeah, for the Wildcats today, our impact player of the game is Andy Shepard. She's been putting on the libero jersey the last couple games, and she's been a great spark off the bench and picking up things on the back row for the Wildcats.
Yep, and facing off against her on the other side is going to be Lauren McCabe. Lauren McCabe has been a dominant presence so far at the net for Seattle U. She's leading some of the WAC statistics and some defensive statistics, such as shooting percentage and blocks. So it's going to be something for the Wildcats to watch out for sure. Now, Maddie, what are some keys to the game for today?
I think for the Wildcats, we want to minimize the mistakes. When we're not scoring points for the other team, they run their offense better. And they don't need to underestimate Seattle U's blocks. They have a really strong block set on the front row, so we're going to have to run offense around that. For Seattle, they want to build off of the small victories. They want to get out here and they want to score points back to back to back and just let that roll. And they don't want to fear failure. They want to come out and they want to play to win and not play trying not to lose.
Yep, you mentioned Abilene trying to minimize mistakes. A lot of those leaders on the team are going to play a big part of that. A lot of those leaders are going to be the seniors. Joseph Chapa had an interesting story about the super seniors here for Abilene Christian. Joseph?
As ACU plays their final games at home this week, they say farewell to 6 graduating seniors, a group that features 2 transfer stars in Jada Burkle and London Gray, and 4 girls that have been at Abilene Christian as early as 2018 with Madison Rohr, Logan Browning, Rachel Chrismore, and Bree Box. The departure of such an experienced group sets up the question of what the future of ACU volleyball may look like. Guys, back to you.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, that is a very interesting story, and I will think it's going to be, because this is sort of the ACU team, it's sort of a young team because you've got those freshmen in there and some of those sophomores like Steinheimer. But Joseph makes a good point that there are a lot of super seniors on this team, some of these leaders who could be instrumental in leading them as the postseason looms.
Yeah, I think that leadership is something that's very important coming into season, especially as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. You know, the grind of the season is kind of hard, and so having leadership that keeps everybody focused every single day is really important coming in, closing in on the end of this conference play.
Yeah, as both of these teams take the court, we're going to look over their starting lineups real quick. For Seattle University, the Redhawks, you're going to have number 6, Ariana Bilby, number 11, Izgi Ozcan, number 12, Marley Hardgrave, number 14, Marima Smavogic, number 15, Erin Goya, number 17, Lauren McCabe, and number 22, Charisse Horn. For the ACU Wildcats, you're going to have Briley Steinheimer, Andy Shepard, Brianna Box, Ashley Edmonston, Guffey, Gray, and Bozier. We're underway here in the first set. And that shot is going to be a bit long, but Hands got it. The first point is going to go to the Wildcats. As we mentioned, coming up the end of the season here, the Wildcats may have a chance to make the playoffs. They're going to have to win a few of these tough games. They've got Seattle U here today, and later on they're going to have Utah Valley, who's done very good in WAC play so far. Here come the Warhawks. Good reception. And a big spike. It was going to be Hardgrave who got her hands on it, but to no avail. It's going to come down. That's going to be Redhawks' second point. They take a 2-0 lead here in the first set. The libero with the serve. Gray with a big hit, but received well again by the libero. Oh, good save there. It was just off the hands. Andy Shepard, our impact player, made a good play, but just out of bounds right there.
You know, we talked about blocks at the beginning of this game being one of the big keys. I think it's going to be a big key for the Wildcats, too, to be able to put up some defense on for the back row on their side.
Serve is received. That's going to be a big hit, and that's going to go flying. Going to be the first point for the Wildcats of the game. Yeah, you mentioned that defense and those blocks that are going to be happening at the net. We mentioned Laura McCabe on the Redhawk side, and she has had a dominant presence for that team this entire time, and she's one of the leaders in the WACs and blocks per set. First serve for the Wildcats by Edmonston, the freshman, is going to be a bit long, and it's going to be Red Hawks ball.
We've seen that from the Wildcats a few times this season, just some service errors consistently. And so I think when they talk about minimizing points for the other team, I think service errors is going to be one of those big keys that try to keep the ball in play and not score for the other team.
You mentioned service errors, and we had an error right there. Just Wildcats couldn't get a hold of the ball, ends up going out of bounds. And the Red Hawks here, who are 0-8 in WAC play, have gotten off to a fairly quick 5-1 lead in the first set. It's going to be a service error, though, on the Red Hawks, and it's going to go right back to the Wildcats. Bozier's going to take the serve. There it is at the net, and gets to the back of the ACU line, but they are able to keep it alive, at least momentarily.
That was a great hustle play right there for the Wildcats.
And that one caught up Bozier. She was able to get her hand on it, but not quick enough. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of these effort plays. It's going to be a lot of what it takes, especially as the season comes to a close, and every sport has to deal with this, but you get down there with injuries and endurance problems, and it's going to come down to maybe which team is the most conditioned, and this Wildcat team does look pretty good when it comes to those high effort plays.
Well, and like you mentioned, Seattle is 0-8 in conference right now, so I think that they're going to be looking to get a win. They want every time I feel like they step on the floor, they're trying to get that win. It's just about getting the first one, and so I think tonight scoring points for the other team is definitely going to be one of the big keys for both teams.
Yeah. And for the Wildcats, I think especially it's going to be getting that shooting percentage up, because when you look at WAC standings and how the Wildcats shape up to other teams, kind of on the lower end. However, in recent games, they have been bouncing back as Maddie Miller makes a great play on the volleyball right there.
I assist. I throw a few assists.
Yeah. But right now it's going to be, getting that shooting percentage up, and it's going to be a lot of those girls there at the net that are going to help do that. Big hit there, but that one's going to go out of bounds. That was Ariana Bilby.
That was great court awareness by Andy Shepard, our impact player. She dropped right below that ball knowing it was sailing over her head instead of trying to keep it in play.
And that's sometimes the hardest play in volleyball, is to not make the play and let the ball go out of bounds.
It's definitely a game of chance sometimes with those lines.
Yeah, because you don't have eyes in the back of your head, obviously, so where's it going to go? But, yeah, Andy Shepard, that's what she's great at, especially in her game, and that's one of the reasons why she was our impact player. Here's the serves. The Red Hawks receive it. And that's going to be a dig attempt there, but to no avail for the Wildcats. It's starting to get a little more back and forth here, 7-6, but Red Hawks still have the lead.
Yeah, Wildcats started off kind of slow, but I think they're starting to pick it up.
Yep. McCabe with the serve. The libero receives, and there's a spike, but a whistle is blown, and the point is going to go to the Red Hawks there.
I think they called Madison Rohr in the net.
Yeah, net violation there, and that's going to give the Red Hawks a point. A lot of those errors are going to have to cut down on as the season wears on. Here's the Red Hawks again. Oh, and a big block at the line. That caught our monitor. We're making a few plays over here at the broadcasting booth, but a big block at the line. Looked like Marley Hardgrove may have got her hands on it, and she's one of those dominant presence at the net for the Red Hawks.
Yeah, they definitely got their hands on that one, and it resulted in a Wildcats point, but that's one of the things that we knew was coming when we coming into this game, that there was going to be a big block on Seattle U's side.
Yeah. And I think just looking roster-wise, you're going to have to ask people like Bozier and like Gray to respond to a lot of that defensive play there at the net. Red Hawks serve, and that one is going to be a bit too strong. Again, good field vision. That's going to result in a Wildcats point. 9-8 so far, off to a quick back and forth here in the first set. Andy Shepard, the libero, is back to serve. Ooh, and that is a strike delivered by Ariana Bilby there from the left, and she's able to get that all the way across the court, manages to miss all of those ACU defenders. Really well placed there by Bilby. Libero receives. And here's a big shot from the right, but a good save. It's going to be a play out of bounds. ACU's just going to have to lob it over. Let's see what the Redhawks can muster. And it was met at the net, but the shot was too strong. I believe Bozier was there for the Wildcats, but she just wasn't able to muscle it back over the net. Warhawks have built themselves a 3-point lead. Powerful hit by Bozier, but an even better save by the Redhawks libero. Tip shot blocked. The assist is set up, but there's a block again.
A couple free balls sent over the net for both teams.
And it's the power that prevails eventually on the left side. Couldn't see who got that shot, but it was a good one.
I think it was Ashley Edmonston
Take a look at the replay.
There.
Yeah, Ashley Edmonston, the freshman who's coming off against one of her better games against Tarleton, and going to take a bit of a break in the action here as the ACU is going to get a chance to serve here. Back is going to be Madeline Guffey. Clean reception by the Redhawks. Edmonston shoots it, but a bit too strong out the back of the court, and it's going to be Redhawk ball.
Talking about minimizing errors right here, Cohen. We got to make ACU has to make sure that they're keeping the ball in play and not scoring points for the other team.
Yeah, we mentioned those service errors, and they've definitely made themselves known here. And another error, there's Bozier at the net. She's going to spike it right down into it. 4-point lead now for the Redhawks, and they're going to bring it into timeout here.
Coach wants to talk about it.
And we're going to be right back with more WAC action as we take a quick break here in Abilene. We are back in Abilene as we resume play here in the first set of this conference matchup. Abilene Christian versus Seattle U. So far, Seattle U is leading ACU 13-9. And we're going to get back into the action here as the first serve from the Redhawks by the libero Erin Goya is going to be a bit too strong, and it's going to be Wildcat point. It's really important coming out of these timeouts, especially if you're calling them to stop the other team's momentum, to build a little bit of momentum yourself, and I think that's what the Wildcats are trying to do here. Another play at the net, but again for the Redhawks, it's going to be a bit too strong. 2 errors so far has led to 2 Wildcat points coming out of the break. As we see Elisa Blair right there coaching up her girls. 22 with a huge spike, but that's going to be called dead before it can land to the Wildcat side. Going to be a Red Hawk point.
I think there was a couple of Wildcats in the net on that block.
And that's the second net violation that we've seen this game. Again, going back to those Wildcat errors and how they've kind of plagued them this whole season. Blocked at the line right there. Redhawks playing some pretty good defense so far. But the Wildcats are responding in kind. However, that one is shot back outside of the field of play. And Seattle U is going to extend their lead here. ACU coming out of the break got off to a quick 2-point 2 points back-to-back, but it's going to end up being Red Hawk ball again. Both these teams right now just waiting for the other to make an error, it seems like.
I think both teams need to settle down a little bit. Both of them are kind of making weird errors, and I think both of them need to just take a settle down a little bit and let it happen. There's just a lot of messy errors right now.
Yep, and like you said, Sharice Horn right there, she just took a messy error off the net. She was trying to make a play. She's made a few of these plays so far in this game. She's had a strong right hand there from the left side of the court, but couldn't handle that one. It's going to be Bozier from the back taking the serve. Horn again with a huge spike, but it's handled well by the Wildcats. And Horn trying to get a hand on that ball. Shoots it out of bounds. It's going to be Wildcat point. Now the deficit's only 2 for ACU. Bozier again with the serve. And from the right side this time, Wildcats are still able to manage. Steinhilber.
There's that block from Seattle that we've been talking about.
Yep. Libero, 9's defensive play there in the middle. Steinhilber again gets it blocked again, and maybe they're anticipating Steinhilber. She's been one of the major contributors for this Wildcat offense. Maybe they're anticipating rather, her contribution there from the side and those big spikes.
ACU's playing out a system a lot too, and when you're playing out a system in a volleyball game, there's going to be a lot of balls sent to the outside, which is one thing that ACU has been trying to get away from this year, is trying to play more in system to be able to set all your hitters, because it makes it easy if there's a really good block to set up on your outside hitter every time if they're playing out of system consistently.
Take a look at the ACU head coach, Elisa Blair. This is her first season in Abilene as the head coach. Not the start that she may have wanted, but she's got a rather young team here. She's 6-15 so far overall and 3-6 in conference. She's got a shot at playoffs like we mentioned earlier before the game, but then again, it is a fairly long shot. And this team's going to probably have to play their best volleyball in order to get there. Steinhilber again with the strong right arm, managed by the Red Hawks, and there's going to be a soft little tapper that ends up making its way over the net for another Red Hawk point.
Yeah, nice little roll over the block right there. Nobody around to pick it up.
Lauren McCabe now back with the serve. Big spike by the Wildcats. Red Hawks looking to respond, and the
Nice
Wildcats
out by
almost
Seattle.
had a point there.
Bree Box turning it back towards the setter right there.
Bree Box, like Steinhilber, has been one of those major players for the Wildcat offense. But we saw a little bit of this with the Red Hawk defense. They've been good on blocks like we mentioned, but they've also had a fairly good season in terms of digs. Their liberos played a big role in that, and obviously the back part of the defense, and we saw a little bit of there so far so in this set. Handled beautifully by Shepard, giving the Wildcats a chance. And the Red Hawks are going to have another error. Mismanaged a little bit after they received it, and they're just going to shoot it out of bounds. ACU looking to take the lead here from set 1. Back to serve is Steinhilber. And there's another error for the Warhawks. Man, has errors played a big role in this one.
Huge, Cohen, and I think serve receive's a big thing for both teams. When running your offense, both teams are going to want to stay in system, and serve receive has a lot to do with that. If they're not getting the ball up to the net, it's going to be really hard for both teams to score effectively, which is going to cause for more errors on both sides.
Yeah, and both of these teams, it's interesting to keep in mind, too, that they have fairly new coaches. Seattle U, their head coach has only been there for 3 years. They hired in 2020 during the COVID season, and we've already mentioned Elisa Blair. We've already mentioned Elisa Blair, who's already had their first year here and is off to a bit of a rocky start. But going back to Seattle U coach, Michelle Cole, this is her second season. She hasn't, again, like Elisa Blair, kind of a rocky start so far in her career and so far in this season. And maybe a lot of these errors and not a lot of cohesion on the defensive end of the ball is what's leading to that.
Well, we've talked about this before, but when you're a new coach, you don't really have very many players on the roster that are your players. And so the longer she stays here, the more she gets to get her recruiting classes in and rebuild her team for the personnel that she's looking for. So I think she's doing a really good job with what she has so far. But as the years go on, she'll get players in that she started to recruit from out of high school and out of the transfer portal and everything. And I think that'll be a big key for her in the next years to come.
And I think that's true across a lot of sports, is you're really going to have two kinds of coaches. You're going to have coaches that have a personnel in mind and the personnel that they want to bring to fit their system, and then you're going to have coaches that have a system in mind and they need to bring personnel in to fit that system. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams shape up in the future. Shepard sets up Burkle on the spike there, but it's blocked again at the net by the Redhawks. A lot of this net play, again, along with the errors, has been very important so far in just the first set. Steinhilber. Set up by Shepard out to the left side, and there's a great shot from the left side. ACU's tied it back up again.
Ashley Edmiston figuring out how to get around the block. That was good. That was a big point for the Wildcats coming up here 18-18.
Yep, 18-18, and finally tying it up. There's Bozier, and she got her ball over the net, and Warhawks shoot it out of bounds. It's going to be Wildcat point, and it's finally, they have the lead, 19-18.
I think that's one of the biggest disadvantages to having a really good block is sometimes when you keep it on their side of the net, it doesn't necessarily land in the square that it needs to.
Yep. Good save there defensively by Steinhilber. Libero with a good defensive play.
Free ball over the net for the Wildcats. Jada Burkle sending it down the line.
And there's Bouger again with the power at the net. Blocked this time by the Redhawks. And that ball goes flying. Saved and put back over the net somehow. And that is going to be a Redhawk point. After all of that commotion, it's a shot that's a bit too far that's going to end it. Tied back up at 19 now. It's an exciting first set so far.
You know, that was a messy rally for Seattle U. They had to keep sending over a few free balls, but that was a great way to stay locked into a rally and seeing the ball end up in your favor.
Edmiston had a chance to get that point there, but just shot it a bit too far. Oh, and there's a nice little dunk. Seattle U was not expecting that at all.
No, Madison Rohr hasn't done that a lot this season, but every time she does it, she's normally pretty successful with it.
Yeah, no, that's really unexpected, especially when you get a player that doesn't do that often and you're looking for the setup, especially when you got Bouger out there on the floor. You're worried about getting spiked on, but then here comes the ball, and it's already touched the court. Wildcats now serving. From the right side, it's going to be Smoljovic who gets the kill there. And now it's going to be Red Hawk ball. They're going back to serve. And a great play there by Edmiston from the right side. Able to get it past that Red Hawk defense, and now they're up by one.
You can see right there that the block in the middle was a little late, just anticipating the ball going to Bozier, allowing there to be a split.
And that ball is going to be shot out of bounds. It's going to be Wildcat point, and finally a 2-point lead right when they need it most, coming up here on the end of the first set.
We'll get a timeout.
It's going to be a Seattle timeout, and like we mentioned, it's so important to build momentum. We mentioned how taking these timeouts before is sometimes killing the other team's momentum, trying to build momentum for yourself. And here we go, as the Wildcats are starting to build a little momentum, get a 2-point lead. It's going to be Seattle U timeout. It's going to be interesting to see if Coach Cole makes any changes here personnel-wise to shake it up here at the end of the set. Take a look at the series history. Not much of it. This is actually the first ever meeting between the two schools, and it's right here in the very new Moody Coliseum. So it's an interesting matchup between two teams that are looking to sort of make a name for themselves in the WAC. Obviously, we mentioned both of them have had their struggles as playoffs are coming up. Looking for a few big wins here, and this is the perfect chance to do it.
Yeah, joining the WAC, ACU's playing a lot of schools that they haven't played, going outside, far outside Texas, further than a lot of the teams have been in the past. And so I think it's been really interesting seeing some of these matchups just from across the country.
Yeah, this Wildcat team especially has been fairly well traveled, as WAC spans all across America, and they've played games at California Baptist, at Utah Tech. So we're not just talking about Texas teams, and we've got Seattle U here today in Abilene, Texas. So it's also going to see across all sports, not just volleyball, but seeing how travel maybe affects play. There's a dunk, but it's received by the Wildcats. The Red Hawks looking for something offensively, and Horn trying to provide it. Softly tapped over the net. Horn receives and spiked, but out of bounds. That's going to be a Wildcat point. Red Hawks tried a few times, but not able to establish anything offensively.
Both teams playing a little bit out of system right there. That one fell in favor of the Wildcats.
Good dig by the libero, and that's going to be Shanice Horn. Big right hand. And a block. We mentioned how the blocks would play a big role, and there it is, our impact player, Lauren McCobb, able to make her presence known there on the right side, get the block, get the point for the Red Hawks, and keep it only to a 2-point deficit.
AC will have the first chance to score right here.
Red Hawks serve.
Good pass. Brayden Bozier telling them, let's go.
Bozier with the great placement on that spike right there, able to get the kill, and what an important time for it. Again, maintaining that lead here late in the first set, and you can see the libero frustration on her face as she wasn't able to come up with a dig there. Bozier now serving it away.
Bozier's been such a consistent offensive threat for the Wildcats this season so far. When their passing's really good and they're able to hit all three hitters at a time, they're able to get their middles involved, and she's been super successful this season with when the passing is good.
Yeah, when your middles are getting involved, that's really when your offense starts clicking, and she's such a great threat there that just her presence on the court alone can maybe establish some better offensive opportunities for her teammates. Horns back to serve. And again, blocked at the net, but this time recovered by the Wildcats. The whistle is blown, and the point is going to go maybe a net violation there for the Red Hawks. And it is the end of set one. Wildcats take the lead here in Abilene, Texas. We'll be right back with WAC play. And we are back here in Abilene, Texas at the beginning of set 2 between this conference matchup between the Abilene Christian University Wildcats and the Seattle University Redhawks. It's been a kind of good back and forth, but not in the way that I think either of these coaches have really wanted. If you look at the statistics from the first set, both of the hitting percentages are down below 200, and there have been a plenty of errors to go around on both sides, and I think the key for this set is going to be limiting that.
Yeah, I think both teams are playing to get rid of their errors right now. This set is going to be a big set to see who can clean up their game. The game is just messy on both sides of the floor, and I think one side playing messy is causing the other side to play messy. They're just kind of sending over balls that aren't really, that either side is really ready for. So I think both sides are going to look to clean up their, just clean up their options this set.
The Wildcats come back out onto the court, looking to go up 2-0 in this matchup. Again, the playoffs are still in the cards for the Wildcats, but they do need to win out the rest of their games. Obviously, as we get on later into the season, the rest of their games are going to be conference games. So it's going to be definitely a challenge for the Wildcats, but man, would that be a statement made by Elisa Blair in her first season taking this team to the playoffs.
Set number 2, your Wildcats has a 1-set lead. Seattle will be serving to start set number 2 and back to serve.
Seattle will be serving to start the second set here.
First set, Abilene got down pretty deep the first couple possessions, so we'll see if they can start a little bit better this set.
Bilby with the serve, and that is going to be yet another error like we talked about. This time it was on the hands of our impact player, Shepard, the libero, who got a control of it, but, you know, flung it the wrong way. Again, the serve, this time received well by the Wildcats.
Double.
And there is going to be a whistle blown. Wildcats get a point, tie it up here at 1.
I think that's the first double we've seen of the night from the setter.
Edmonston is back with the serve. Received by the libero. And here's Horn from the left side this time, and that's going to be a Red Hawk point as it just barely clipped the inside boundary there. Really a good shot by Horn. Steinhilber with a great shot. That one maybe would have gone out of bounds right there, but Red Hawks elected to try and play it defensively. Goes out of bounds. All
She sent
tied
that
up
one
at 2.
far to the sideline, trying to hit around that block.
Yeah. That serve right there, another service error. It's going to be a bit too strong, go out the back of the court. And already we talked about the errors, and we've seen quite a few of them already in set 2. Wildcats just dumping it over the net there, and
huge block right there by Bree Box.
Ozcan was just trying to quickly get it over the net, but Bree Box was anticipating that, and she was all over it. Denied it right back, and getting the Wildcats back into this thing. And again, like we see in this first set, it's been a kind of a back and forth, but not all the times in a good way.
Such a heads-up play right there by Bree Box.
War receives it. Shepard back to Steinhilber, and again a powerful shot, but this time the Red Hawks are able to manage it. Shepard to Steinhilber again. And Horn's going to respond in kind, but she responds out of bounds. It's going to be Wildcat point, Wildcat lead. 4-3 so far here in the second set. It's going to be Roar back to serve. Red Hawks just have to dump it. And
Bree Box straight down out of the middle.
Bree Box on a few possessions ago demonstrated her defensive capabilities. They are demonstrating her offensive capabilities, and man, she just found the right spot and almost hit Horn right in the teeth, and she wasn't able to manage it.
And that's what the Wildcats want to do. They want to capitalize on Seattle sending over free balls to run their offense freely how they want.
Horn really knows how to place those hits, doesn't she? Every single point that she's got, it's been right on that boundary.
She's doing a really good job of hitting around the block, too, just trying to find the sweet spot right there on that back line.
She's going to be back to serve. Had to be dug out by Steinhilber, who's going to send it over the net. That one could not be dug out. Again, good placement by this Red Hawk team.
It's been a little bit more back and forth early in this set than it was at the beginning of the first set.
That was Hardgrave there with the kill. Horn. And Box yet again right there in the middle, and the Red Hawks just cannot find an answer to her. Defensively and offensively, she's making her presence known.
You can give a shout out to the back row right there, I think, for the Wildcats, just getting the passes to the net the last couple possessions just so that way they can get their middles involved in their offense.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier, how much passing helps, especially when setting up those offensive opportunities for the middles. And there's a strong shot there from Burkle. That's going to tie things up here at 6 in the second set.
I think they called a double right there on Madison Roar.
So 2 doubles here in the second set for the Wildcats, and Red Hawks are going to get a chance to serve. Box again, sends it over, but received by the Red Hawks. Coming across the court there was the Wildcats, able to keep this alive. Playing good defense so far. And they keep it going. Here's Shepard. And Shepard is holding it down. But finally, the Seattle U gets one of their patented blocks up front, able to get a point out of all that. Wildcats really look like they were playing on their heels that whole time, trying to play defense, and then Burkle finally gets an opportunity to go on offense, and Seattle U shuts her down. A dunk attempt there. And a big right hand.
Block right there.
That's going to be Edmonston there on the left side. Able to slam it down and slam it right through that Red Hawk block. Ball is back in possession of the Wildcats here. It's going to be the libero Shepard with the serve. Boozer tried to get her hands on it and maybe send that back over the net, but it falls on the Wildcat side. It's going to be 8-7 now, Red Hawks. Ozcan for the Red Hawks is serving. And there was a powerful hit right there from Edmonston again, and the Red Hawks were just not able to receive it cleanly. It's going to be another offensive point there for ACU, tying it up, all knotted up at 8 here in the second set.
That was a good heads-up play by Braden Bozier right there. That ball popped right up off that block, and she swiped it down to the side. Hitters couldn't find the ball before it hit the ground.
There's a hit tipped by Wildcat, maybe Bozier. But there is Bozier sending it back to the libero. Bozier again at the net.
Seeing a lot of touches on both sides of the net.
And Bozier is just able to overpower the Red Hawks there, shooting it through the block and down into the net. 9-8 now, ACU. Guffey's back for the serve. And it's going to be a bit too strong. Another service error on the Wildcats, knotting it up at 9. So far, a lot of dominant net play, I guess you could say, on both sides. In the first set, it leaned a little bit towards the Red Hawks, but the Wildcats are responding in kind here in the second set. Good dig there. and is able to, wow, that was Edmonston again, just putting a nice gentle touch on it, just shooting it over the net, able to get that one to drop. And this has been a good back and forth here. We've had a few of these errors, especially to start off this set, but this is looking more of these, both of these teams, you could say, are kind of coming into their own and scoring points on their own accord. Edmonston now back to serve.
We talked about that a little bit in the last set, Cohen. I think just trying to have both teams find their settle. They were both kind of antsy, just throwing the ball around, messy possessions, and I think now both teams are starting to figure out what they're going to do and just being able to play through the free balls, play through the touches and of the blocks and everything, and it's just working out well for both, considering it's tied 10-10 here in this set.
Service is out of bounds. It's going to give ACU the lead. Bozier is back for the serve. Both of these teams, though, you love the back and forth in terms of nobody's making errors, but both of these teams would love to go on a run as Horn is able to shoot that past the Wildcat defense. It's going to go out of bounds, and that's going to be a Red Hawk point. Horn has really been one of the more powerful threats so far in this matchup. Tap shot over for the Wildcats, received well by the Red Hawks. Steinhilber. Ooh, Shepard.
Collision right there for the Wildcats.
Collision in the middle of the court. And you gotta wonder if maybe that collision was in the mind of Shepard as she was going for that dig right there, but certainly not what you want to see if you're Coach Blair. You should kind of want your team to be on the same page, and obviously that's not indicative of that. It's gonna be still Red Hawk serve. Steinhilber coming down with a big right hand, but it is blocked at the net by the Red Hawks. Number 11, Ozcan, was able to get up there and contest that. And it is going to be Seattle U with the lead here as second set is halfway through, 13-11, and we're going to send it over to the third member of our crew, Joseph Chapa. Joseph.
Well, exactly 28 days until the WAC tournament takes place in Edinburgh, Texas. And these next 4 weeks will be crucial for both Seattle U and ACU as they look to crack the top 8 for a conference tournament bid. While Seattle U does have more work to do than ACU does to get an 8 seed, there's still a lot of volleyball left to be played for both teams to make a run for it. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, Joseph, that is very interesting looking at those standings and seeing how these teams will shape up. We mentioned how both of these teams have fairly new coaches and they've both been off to quite a rocky start, but it would be great for either of these teams to really make a name for themselves and get their team into the playoffs. Maybe we'll see that for either the Wildcats or the Red Hawks in the coming years, as you mentioned, as these coaches are able to get in more personnel from either the transfer portal or from high school. Coming out of break now, 13-11, Red Hawk lead here in the second set. Both of these teams looking to desperately needing to go on a run here. However, up until this point, it's been a fairly close back and forth. Maybe in the second set, we've seen a few less errors than the first set. Looking to continue that trend on both sides.
The blocks continue for Seattle's side.
Yep, and they've continued to be an issue for the Wildcats offense. So far, a good back and forth, and Shepard with a great dig, and there is Brianna Box in the middle, able to send that down and get it in with a 1-point deficit now only for the Wildcats.
Bree Box has been super locked in on that net. She's getting her hands on things. She's being ready for the setter to dump. She's just been all around good tonight so far.
Yeah, she's filled that role of the middle very well, both offensively and defensively. We've seen what she can do on both sides, blocking and attacking. Roar with the serve, and that's going to be Horn sending it down, but sending it down out of bounds, knotted up at 13. Roar's going to go back for the Wildcats again with the serve. And they are feeding Horn as she has continued to go on the attack, but so has Brianna Box, tipping it just over the net. Horn again. That's going to be off the fingertips of it looked like Jada Burkle, and that's going to go out of bounds. It's going to be a Red Hawk point. Trying to put up a good defensive effort there was Burkle, but maybe the strength of Horn was just enough to get it past her fingertips and out of bounds.
One thing we haven't talked about tonight, Cohen, is the fact that Seattle's running a 5-1 right now, so they're running their setter out of the right side, which means they only have two hitting options on the front row right now.
Yeah, they only have two hitting options on the front row, but when one of them is Horn, you know, you're going to get a lot of those good looks, and she's been able to place the ball so well, seemingly wherever she wants on the court, and that's led to a lot of her points.
She definitely has the hot hand right now for Seattle.
And they're going to continue to feed it until Wildcats can do something about it. And again, there's another good shot from the left side. That time not by Horn, but rather by Bilby. Able to shoot that across the Wildcat defense, and the back and forth continues. No team has really been able to establish run at all in this game. On a box, getting it over the net. And that ball is going to be shot out of bounds, but it was off the hand of a Wildcat. It's going to be Red Hawk point. Looks like it was off the hands there of Box. And there is another massive block by the Red Hawks. This time is a courtesy of number 12, Marley Hardgrave, and she was able to get up and get that ball down, sending it back to Shepard. And just as we were mentioning, one team going on a run, we're kind of seeing the Red Hawks put something together here in the second set. Good save there in the back, and that is going to be a Wildcat point as the ref says it is just out of bounds.
I think the coach might go for a challenge right there. No, maybe not.
It did look like a lot of the Red Hawks were unsatisfied with the ruling, but yeah, as you said, maybe not challenging, and play is going to continue. Libero with a great dig. And a huge spike there. Either courtesy of Bozier or Burkle, either way, able to send it back into Red Hawk territory and get the point. Hopefully for the Wildcats, putting it into that red hot one as time is going to be called by Seattle. 17-16 here in the second set. The back and forth has continued. Red Hawks looked like they were going on a little bit of a tear there for a second, but the Wildcats were able to respond in kind, got the ball back, and now back to the back and forth as the set is winding to a close.
Yeah, like you said, Cohen, there hasn't been a substantial lead in any of our sets besides the beginning of the first set when Seattle kind of went on a run at the beginning. But I think that just kind of shows you that neither team is quitting right now. They're not letting small mistakes of their own trickle into point after point for the other team, and so I think that's been a big key. That was one of the keys for one of the teams to just handle the small victories, and so I think each team is doing that right now. Take a point, give a point, take a point, give a point.
Yep.
And I think we'll keep seeing that as these sets go on.
And I definitely think that if you look at maybe the first set numbers and the second set numbers, both sides, you could say this about, were doing a better job of handling themselves and keeping a control on the errors, although they were still a little prevalent in the second set. Again, that has to be a talking point in both of these huddles right now. It's just taking care of your own and going back to fundamentals, making sure that you take care of the ball and don't give the other team points.
I would agree. I think both sides have cleaned up their style of volleyball for coming into this set. There's more scoring points than just giving each other points,
yes.
I would say.
Which, again, is good for both sides.
Yeah.
Shepard is back to serve. Bozier, her power just sends that over into Red Hawk territory, not able to receive it cleanly, and it's going to shoot out of bounds. just a great hit right here in the middle of the court.
It's a great feed right there by Madison Rohr. She did a really good job of putting her middle on the net. It's really hard to set your middle when you're behind them sometimes, and that was just a really high execution.
And that was a play that seemed to be pretty close to the line back there. The ref is going to give it to the Red Hawks. Again, the back and forth here continues. It's going to be Red Hawks serve. Backed up is number 11, Ozcan.
We see their setter, Seattle setter, move back to the back row. So that means they have 3 hitting options right here for on Seattle's side.
And there was another close call there in the back of the court. The ref officially gives the point to
We get
Seattle.
a challenge card from Elisa Blair.
And the challenge card, yeah, that did look like it was very close there in the back corner. So we're going to send this one to the video, let the refs take a closer look and decide where this ball actually landed.
Let's see if we can't get a replay.
Yeah, a lot of these, talking about these, you know, very hard hit balls and going back and forth, I think that's very good for either team, is going to be getting those balls where you want them, shooting them with strength, but also shooting them accurately as we take a look at the replay here. And that is really hard to tell, at least from that angle. It's going to be Burkle there. Either way this goes, it's either going to be
get it in slow motion.
Burkle with the kill or Burkle with the error. So it was set by Rohr, and then Burkle comes down on it, and man, that's close. Looks like it just catches the line, but
The line judge might have had it right.
yeah.
It landed right at his feet. He straddles that back line.
Yeah, he's got a better view than anyone. But again, both of these teams seem to go on rather good offensive stretches. You mentioned the setup and the connections by Rohr and the good passing and feeding the middles. I think that, especially for Coach Blair, that's got to be really hopeful.
Successful challenge right there for Coach Blair.
Successfully knotting it up at 18, and that's really a good call there by Coach Blair, even if it is close. Especially as the set winds to a close, how impactful it is to take a 2-0 lead so far in this game. Serve is received by the Red Hawks.
Good touch on the block right there. They are feeding Braden Bozier today.
And that is going to fall out of bounds. That's going to be Wildcat point. Yeah, like you said, every time Bozier has been on the court, she has definitely made her impact known. Right there, it took a great, fantastic dig by the Red Hawks to save from the kill from Bozier.
Serve receive error right there for Seattle U.
Yep. And now finally one of these teams is able to put back-to-back points in at what a more crucial time. 20-0 right now for ACU as this set starts to wind to a close, and just one good tear here from really either team could be enough to put this set away. But even when you talk about taking a 2-0 or maybe even just a 2-1 lead in some of these games set-wise, the Wildcats throughout the season haven't been great at holding on to those leads. They jumped out early in a lot of these games, 1-0, 2-0, even 2-1 games, and the other team is able to work their way back in. So if you're Coach Blair, obviously you're talking about winning this set, but also maintaining that lead if you do in fact go into the third set with a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, and I think they want to keep playing with confidence every single set. I think there can be a lack of focus sometimes when you go up 2 sets and then the team, your opponent is coming in trying to make sure that they make up for their mistakes in the early in the 2 sets. And I think that's kind of just where they've caught fire. Their opponents have caught fire, and I think that's just kind of where they've lacked coming back from it. But right now, I think they're trying to get on a roll right here, trying to finish the set. And we saw the last set, the way set 1 ended. Seattle made a couple errors just scoring the last couple points for the Wildcats. The set ended with a net violation, and so I think if Seattle wants to be successful, they're going to have to come back and not make points for ACU right now and score for themselves.
Yeah, obviously the last thing you want to do is make the other team's job easier. Here's the Red Hawks, a little bit of a miscommunication though. They're just able to get the ball over, but that looks like it's going to be inbounds.
I think that was very much in.
It was, yeah.
I think that was very much in.
It looked pretty in, so maybe a bad judgment call there by the Wildcats. But again, we mentioned this earlier on the broadcast. It's so tricky whenever you're trying to judge whether a ball is or is not going to bounds, especially on a play where it looked like maybe the Red Hawks didn't have entire control over what they were shooting. Wildcats receive. And that shot is going to be a bit too strong. So just like that, the Wildcats' 2-point lead has evaporated coming out of the timeout, all knotted up here at 2, and this ever crucial second set. Redhawks serve. A gentle touch over the net, and that is just going to hit the hands of one of the Redhawks, and that's going to give ACU the lead here.
I think you could see instant regret on Horn's face. It's kind of #1 rule. Don't turn around to hit the ball after they've tipped over the block. You have people coming in trying to get those tips. You have people's jobs are to come and pick up those tips, and you could kind of see her apologize to her DS.
Horn again, almost with another error, but the Redhawks able to recover.
Big block right there by Seattle.
And there is some serious net presence for the Wildcats right there. Bozier and Gray, and there's
Bozier ended the point right there. Brayden Bozier.
Shooting it right at the libero, and she is not able to dig it out. She has had this power all game, and she demonstrates it again here.
She's done a great job of turning it back towards the setter, especially with your two biggest hitters being, your biggest blockers being Horn and your middle blocker for Seattle U, turning it back towards your right side. It just opens up her net hugely.
And there again is the Redhawks' leading offensive contributor, Horn, shooting it into the hands of Bozier and Gray. Just goes out of bounds. Still a 1-point lead here, 22-21. Again, this is just like the first set. It's been very back and forth. No one team has been able to establish a streak. And there is Gray shooting it out of bounds. We're all knotted up at 22.
It seems to be a consistent score 2, comeback tie.
Yeah, no, it really does. And a lot of these comebacks from either of these teams have been by the air.
I think we see another challenge by Elisa Blair right there. Which, why not? You have 2, and you didn't lose the first one because you won it. So I think this is a big set. If ACU could come up with this set, I think that would be very beneficial for them.
Yeah, very good, taking the 2-0 lead. And obviously it's not impossible to come back from the 2-0 lead, but you definitely have to climb up that mountain at that point. But if you're Coach Cole right now, I think you're definitely just telling your girls that play fundamentals. You know, obviously every coach will say this across every sport, but you don't win the game on whatever, Thursday or Saturday. You don't win the game on game day. You win the game day in the week leading up to game day. So go back to your fundamentals, and like we said earlier, and like we've been harping on this entire game, you just can't gift the other team points, and I feel like both of these teams have done a lot of that, and it's just going to come down to, I think, in this set and then in the next set, which team is going to play cleaner volleyball. ACU is going to end up winning that challenge there, and
Elisa
how big
Blair.
is that?
Elisa Blair is 2 for 2 tonight.
Yeah, she is.
2 for 2.
Her hitting percentage is 100% right now, so she's feeling pretty good about herself, undoubtedly, and that's a huge turnover for points-wise. 23-21 now. Bozier serving 2 points from putting this set away.
Good serve right there by Brayden Bozier.
Bozier receives it. And man, somehow able to dig that down, and here's Horn. And just able to find the one weak spot in the middle of that Wildcat defense. That is some impressive accuracy from there. Horn on the left side.
And we're tied at 23. Oh, I'm lying.
Yeah.
We're not.
No, it's
I forgot that point got reversed.
Yep. And a great shot there by Box, but is able to be dug out, and that is going to fall on the Wildcats side of the net. Now we're tied at 23.
Now we're tied at 23.
So see, now what you did is you wished it into
I know,
existence.
I spoke it into existence.
Oh
I
my
really
goodness.
manifested that.
Okay, well now we're knotted up at 23, courtesy of Maddie Miller, and it's gonna be Redhawks serve. And a bit, wow, big right hand there from Steinhilber, and that's huge. 24-23 Wildcats. Take a look at that replay, and she's just able to manage to get it over the hands.
That block.
And we've mentioned McCade, she was one of our impact players, and just able to shoot it through the hands of big number 17 right there. Set point for ACU. Here comes Horn. Just tipping it over. Shepard.
Great pickup play by the
Great
libero right
pickup.
there.
Horn again. And there is Box. And who else to close off the set but Bree Box, able to find the weak spot in that Red Hawks defense. And ACU takes a dominating 2-0 lead here in Abilene, Texas. We'll be right back with Western Athletic Conference play here in Abilene. Hello and welcome back
Think about the next ball.
to Abilene, Texas, and we are back here for the start of set 3. Abilene able to take a 2-0 lead here in this game, Wildcat Conference, WAC Conference game, and we're going to send it down to the third member of our crew, Joseph Chapa, who has a story about Elisa Blair. Joseph, take it away.
You know, it may be early to think about the next volleyball season, but for ACU head coach Elisa Blair, the game plan for what the future of her program will look like is already being worked on. This week during her press conference, Blair simply laid out the foundation for what her offseason and spring semester will look like. As she wraps up her first year at Abilene Christian, a chance to build a program from the ground up will be an interesting sight to see. Guys, back to you.
Thank you very much, Joseph Chapa. Yeah, a lot of this is going to come down to the coaching, especially when you get into these very tight-knit, close, back-and-forth games, which is really what we've been having. Set 1 was 25-22. Set 2 was even closer, 25-23. So no team has really had an opportunity to take a break and catch a breather here. It's been back and forth, and a lot of that has been to the doing of the own making their errors. We've mentioned that plenty of times, but a lot of that is going to come down to coaching on either side of this ball, either for Coach Cole or Coach Blair. There's going to have to be a lot of talk with their players on whether or not what to do with these errors going forward. And we are going to go back to break, and we're going to be back after this for set 3 between ACU and Seattle U. Hello and welcome back to Abilene, Texas, where we are entering the third set between this game between the Seattle University Redhawks and the Abilene Christian University Wildcats. So far, like we mentioned before, Abilene Christian came out to a rather commanding lead, even though it was never steady. A little bit of back and forth in both sets, but they still lead this one 2-0, and both of these teams, as we mentioned before going into this break, looking to cut down on the errors.
I think we can talk about Bree Box and Braden Bozier for the Wildcats right now. They were huge pieces to that win of set 2. Both of them just having heads-up plays and being available for their setter every time they had the opportunity to.
Really taking the offense into their own hands, both of those middles, Box and Bozier. Looking to continue the same effort as that is going to be shot out of bounds there by the Redhawks.
I've been super impressed with Andy Shepard, the way she's been watching that line. She's just been trusting her instincts and knowing when the ball's going to sail out and not, and it's just been very beneficial for the Wildcats tonight.
Yeah, for the libero, it's as much as a mental game as it is physical. Andy Shepard's been holding her own back there in the Wildcat court. Off the ticks of Bozier, there's Andy Shepard setting it up. And it is going to be blocked, but blocked out of bounds. Blocks have played a big role in this one. We haven't made any secret about that, but right there, it did not go Redhawks' way. Back to serve for the Wildcats is going to be Guffey. So there's a bit of break in the action there, but Redhawks receive it well. And that one is going to be tipped off the hands of a Wildcat and out of bounds. Lauren McCabe now, our impact player for the Redhawks, back to serve. And that one is going to be shot down at the feet. That's going to be Wildcats' point.
I love to see Braden Bozier put that ball down like that and turn around to point at her setter, knowing that she gave her that assist and giving her the credit for having a great set.
Yeah, you love to see that in a team, that sort of bond, and you love to see that as a coach. It definitely means that there's some cohesion there. And another great hit there, that time by Ariana Bilby on the left side, able to shoot that past the Wildcat defense. Seen a lot of those type shots, especially from the Redhawks. And there is a huge hit at the line there. It's going to be by Steinhilber, but then again, it's going to be blocked by the Redhawks.
I think Jada Burkle tried to hit through that block, and it came back a little harder than what she put it into it in.
Yeah, that presence for the Redhawks has really been dominant. Definitely the best part of their game. And there is a great shot. That's going to give the Wildcats a 4-3 point lead here in the third set rather. And that was just great placement there in the back of the court. Bozier's back, getting ready to serve. Good hit there by Bilby for the Redhawks, but it's going to go out of bounds. Point goes to the Wildcats, 5-3 here, and in this game, a 2-point lead has been quite a lot, even though they've been able to bounce back from it. It's usually as large as we've seen it, barring the first few points, and that 2-point lead is going to balloon to a 3-point lead here, as an error by the Redhawks give the Wildcats another point.
I think we've seen Seattle kind of struggle with serve-receive a little bit tonight. I think that this set, they've kind of started off with a few serve-receive errors, just not having great passing to the net, not able to run their offense.
And a lot of that give credit to the Wildcats too, as very accurate, very powerful serves, and that's kind of been an issue. We mentioned that earlier in the season for the Wildcats, is the service errors. Not so many tonight, and forcing Redhawks to make a few errors on the service.
I think that's one thing Braden Bocher's also been really good at this past season, is just giving really good service pressure.
And there is a massive block up front. That's going to be Bree Box and Burkle. Looks like they were both there to meet the ball with force. Jumping up, and looks like Burkle got the brunt of it. And man, that was a good block as time is taken now. And it's going to be 7-3, a 4-point lead here for the Wildcats in conference play. We'll be back right after this break.
November 9th, the women's
And we are back in Abilene, Texas, as ACU has put together a 4-0 scoring run here, and it's been Bozier in the backcourt putting up some fairly good serves, making the job easy for the Wildcats, and the blocking too for the Wildcats. Great defense so far to start the third set. Burkle trying to get it over the net, could not. Steinhilber shoots it over, and that's going to hit the TV there, middle of Moody. And Redhawks are going to break the 4-0 Wildcat run. Unable to dig it out there was Edmonston in the backcourt, and it's going to be Redhawk serve.
We've talked about this a little tonight, but I think Elisa Blair would really be encouraged to see her team win this in 3 sets. They've kind of played with people. They've won in 5 a couple games. They've taken teams to 5 and lost in 5, and so I think she would love to see her team kind of handedly win a 3-0 in set play.
Yeah, there's just something about a sweep that makes a victory so much more satisfying. Steinhilber able to get it over the net. Redhawks able to manage it, however.
Andy Shepard has been super impressive tonight, just being able to pick up balls that are coming out of really fast, especially from Horn, who's been the hot hand for Seattle tonight.
And oh, Shepard again. Great play, but not great enough. Shoots it out of bounds, and that's going to be Redhawk point, and they've cut the deficit now to 2. Redhawks looking to respond, get back into this third set here. Bilby with the serve. Steinhilber receives it well. And there's a powerful right hand from Horn, but maybe a bit too powerful. Shot out the back, and it's a 3-point lead again for the Wildcats. Horns usually had a great control over that shot, didn't have that one right there. Maybe that big threat on the net is forcing her to kind of shoot around some of those girls.
Well, in this set, ACU has done a really good job of putting up a block, and so now you're having to think about it and think about hitting around it and placing your offense around it. And I think that's kind of what Horn's trying to get away from.
The whistle's blown, and the point is given to the Redhawks. Maybe a net violation there on the Wildcats, as it looked like Box maybe was going up to contest the spike. Libero's back to serve. Shepard puts it up to Steinhilber. Gets sent right back to her. Received by the Redhawks. And just tapped over the net right there. Looked to be off the hands of number 12, Gray.
That was great patience on that block. They waited for that ball to come down.
Yeah, man, just caught the top of the net right there, and really nothing you can do about that if you're the Redhawks. Just great ball, great touch on the ball right there to able let it find Redhawk court. Back to a 3-point lead now for the Wildcats. It's going to be number 11. Horn again with the powerful right hand, able to take care of it though is Shepard.
Both teams picking up some heat on the back end.
But great digs again by both teams. Defensive play has been very good so far in this third set. And it's going to be a shot that is a bit too strong. However, the point is going to go Abilene's way.
I think Horn was in the net right there.
Okay, net violation.
She's had a couple errors back to back. I think Coach Cole's going to try to see what a different hitter might look like outside.
Yep, they're bringing Sydney Wilkes in, taking Shanice Horn out. It's going to be interesting to see how the Wildcats respond without one of the better offensive threats for the Redhawks in. Ten to 6, the third set, but we mentioned it before how service errors had kind of played a little bit of a issue so far in the Wildcats season, and they rear their ugly, ugly head there again.
We haven't seen too many tonight, though. I think
Yeah.
they've been having a lot of service pressure, though, which I think has been really good, which has also allowed for them to have success in making Seattle have good serve receive. That block from Seattle has just been everywhere tonight.
Yeah, it really has, but good dig right there by the Wildcats. Not able to dig it out there, and that's going to be Redhawks, and they're kind of closing in on the Wildcats' lead here in the third set. Again, this net play has been kind of the characteristic of this entire game so far, and we're really seeing it from obviously we had our impact player, Lauren McCabe, but all across this Red Hawk roster, you've got contributors. And there's a error on the reception for the serve right there, and just like that, Seattle U's made it a 1-point game. Again, a lot of back and forth, and a lot of these teams maybe gifting some errors, but also you have to keep in fact that some of these serves have been very great forcing these errors. As that one is going to go in the Wildcats' favor. Bozier is back in the game, taking the place of Breebox. Shepard with the serve.
Big block right there from Baden Bozier and Logan Gray.
Wilkes was trying to go in, looked like with the gentle touch, not really trying to spike it, but able to snuff it out were the Wildcats, and yeah, it's gonna be a big point there. Defensively, a lot of these points have come off those blocks for both sides. Wilkes with a bit more power this time, but it does not pay off. She shoots it a bit too far. Or no, rather, it does pay off. She doesn't shoot it too far. It's 10-12, and they've cut the deficit to 2.
I think she might have used the block right there.
Yeah, I think it was off the hand. Chloe Lee is back to serve for the Red Hawks. And Bozier somehow blocked at the net, and there again, another block for this Red Hawks defense. More gentle approach, dug out by the Red Hawks. And a good back and forth so far. Edmonston trying to put it away, and she does. Able to finally overpower the block at the net and get it to fall on the Red Hawks court.
That was an intense rally right there.
Yeah, no, that was a great back and forth defensively, especially. Both girls showing off a lot of athleticism and a lot of strength at the net.
I think both teams did a really good job of keeping the other guessing. Nobody really did anything super basic in that rally.
Here's a serve by the Wildcats.
The slide.
Edmonston is able to shoot it across the court, and with such great power too. That's going to be a 14-10 lead now here in set 3.
That was a great cut right there around the block by Edmondson.
And you can see her call for it there. She knew what she wanted, and she got it.
Seattle struggled with serve receive the last couple balls.
Again, a lot of that power is coming from the net, and we saw it again right there. Able to get a point off the hands of a Wildcat. McCobb back to serve. And there is a huge play at the net by who else but Ray Bozier. She's able to serve it and get it over past that Red Hawk defense.
Braden Bozier has just been so impressive tonight. She's taking no prisoners.
She's relentless up there at the net, offensively and defensively. And that may have been Bozier again making her presence known on defense. The Red Hawks cannot shake her at all. It's a, well, get this, it's a 5-point lead. Going on a bit of a run, the Wildcats are. Back with the serve is the Wildcats. Blocked at the net again. The steel curtain has come down here in Abilene, Texas. We've had a few blocks back to back to back, and it's 11-17. And, you know, you're down 2-0 and you're down by 6 points in this set. Is this lead insurmountable if you're the Red Hawks?
I think this is kind of just what the Red Hawks have struggled with this season so far. You know, they're 0-8, and they're 0-8, and they kind of just get down by 2, and it's hard to come back from that.
Yeah, and as we're talking about the standings, and yeah, like we mentioned, they are 0-8, and here we take a look at their upcoming schedule, and it's not easy. It's definitely going to be a rough patch going for them forward. They're playing at Tarleton, who are right at ACU's level in terms of standings, and then they're going to UTRGV, and they're going through the rest of that WAC schedule as the playoffs come forward. As we take a look at ACU scheduled, it is equally as difficult. Utah Valley, they play here coming up, and they are one of the premier teams in the WAC, and then you've got 3 away games following that. Again, these are all going to be conference games, barring the New Mexico State, and I mean, it's just a gauntlet, like we said before, and there is a chance for the Wildcats to make the playoffs, but they're going to most likely have to win out, and there's always those freak scenarios of a team losing to teams, but if for the Wildcats to control their own destiny, which obviously everybody wants to do, they're going to have to win out. Redhawks looking to get out of this deficit. Shepard's just going to have to clear it over, and it falls out of bounds.
I think if you're Elisa Blair right now, you can't really think about playoffs in a certain aspect. You kind of just have to go game by game, set by set. You've pushed people to 5-set. You've lost in 5, won in 5. I think winning a set at a time, a game at a time is going to be the biggest key for the Wildcats to be able to control their own destiny.
You certainly can't look past opponents, and that is not what ACU is doing here, looking to put away Seattle University 3-0. And they are well on their way to doing that now. 6-point lead. It's 18-12 Wildcat advantage.
Seattle kind of got down early in this set, and I think they just kind of looked a little flustered since then. It's kind of like how we looked in the first set, just not settled.
Yeah, and a lot of that, like we were mentioning earlier, comes down to maybe the conditioning and the endurance of these teams. It's late in the season. You've got a few injuries, and it's just going to come down to who makes the fewest errors, I think, and who's the most fundamentally sound as there is another ball shot out back of the court by the Redhawks, and it's going to be 19-12. Again, ACU advantage, and they're looking to put them away here quick. Time has been taken, and Redhawks just have to be thinking, what can they do maybe personnel-wise? What can they do maybe scheme-wise to sort of fight their way back into this one and maybe break up some of this Wildcat momentum?
Yeah, I think going along with like the lead that the Wildcats have right now, they've been hitting on all cylinders. Their passing has been good. They've been picking up the balls. There's been a lot of blocks and a lot of touches out on the net this set. And I think that's kind of been the difference for them. And a lot of balls are falling their way. And when you kind of see balls fall your way, it gives you momentum, but it also is kind of defeating if you're on the receiving end of that and not having much success.
Yeah, and it can be so devastating to a team, especially when you're down by so much. To see a lot of those hits, we've seen Horn make a few of these hits, these powerful balls that just get across the entire defense just to fall out of bounds. A lot of that effort goes into setting up those shots, and for them to fall flat, that can really kill an offensive drive, especially when you're down by as much as the Redhawks are right now. But they are looking to bounce back here, obviously. If the Wildcats get the win here in set 3, it's going to be a sweep here of the Redhawks. And it's an elusive sweep, as you mentioned before. A lot of these games have, especially with the Wildcats, have been very close, very contested. We've seen close and contested so far in this one, but they're looking to put it away cleanly here. 3 sets.
Wildcats are playing with a lot of confidence right now coming into this set, and so I'm hoping that, I think Elisa Blair is hoping that they come out and kind of finish the set off handedly.
Yeah, and not only in this game, but also it's important to carry this momentum up. We talked about not being overlooking an opponent, but it's also important, I think, to carry momentum from opponent to opponent. Maybe you take some of the momentum, some of the lessons that you learned from this game as you go later on into conference play.
Jada Burkle had no block really on that one down the line. She let him have it.
Yet another great hit by the Wildcats. Back now is number 5, Roar, with the serve, and wow, just able to find the weak spot in that Redhawk defense. Maybe a little bit deceptive off the hands of Roar, and nobody was able to get to it for CLU. Again, one of those maybe defeating and points that you get whenever you're down by so much.
Madison Roar's really good at that little float serve. It'll just drop out of nowhere. You don't really see it coming until it's dropping right in front of you.
Wilkes giving it back to the Wildcats. The Wildcats responding in kind, but a bit too strong there. Redhawks get a point, and they're cut the deficit to 6. Back to serve is the libero for the Redhawks, Goya, and that is just tipped over the net. And that is really unfortunate for the Wildcats. Not a lot that you can do right there, especially with those shots that just creep over the net. Lucky even to get it back over, but the Redhawks able to finish it from there. 5-point lead now for the Wildcats.
Erin Goya has done a really good job at serving tonight. She's had a lot of service pressure on the Wildcats. You see right there, Elisa Blair is trying to calm her team. She said, it's okay, calm down. They've scored a few points in a row, but we still have the lead by 4. Let's get a good offensive possession right here and see if we can't side out.
Yep, we have the lead, but do not get complacent. Like you've said, the Red Hawks are playing to their strengths. They've put on good service pressure, but just jinxed them there. A service error now, and it's going to give ACU a 21 points. Or no, rather.
I think they called that right down the line.
That
Goya
was,
put her right on the line right there next to Steinhilber.
Yeah, really, I mean, close play. Back to my point, they've put a lot of service pressure on, especially later on here in this third set, especially coming from their libero, as you mentioned, number 15, Goya. And they've won a lot of these points up front as well. As we've seen, cut into this deficit, they're only down by 3 points now, and a lot of that was due to some of that defensive play up front.
And you gotta, if you're Coach Cole, you have to be impressed with how your team came out of that timeout, just coming on that little run and putting themselves back in this game, really. And I think if you're Elisa Blair, you're trying to calm your team down a little bit. You know that you have 5 points to go, but a team is coming up. They have a little hot streak going, and so I think you want to calm your team down and just come back and play solid. They haven't played solid the last couple points. Just little messy errors and stuff like that, like they had in the first set, and so I think they're trying to calm down right now.
Yeah, for sure. Just calm down and realize that you've already gone on a run on this team before, and an equal run will put the game away right here. So just trying to remind her girls of that as they take the court back again. And this has been a really great back and forth game here on both teams, that sometimes not making the plays that they think they should make, and on other times making some really spectacular and close plays. Goya's back for the Red Hawks to serve. And man, that Red Hawk bench does not seem out of it at all. Another defensive play there at the net, and that one is going to go the Wildcats' way. It was blocked back and forth, but it was the Wildcats who came out on top there, 21-17 now.
I think there was a little bit of a mix-up between all the teams. Everybody was trying to transition to their place. There's a big mob of Wildcats right here in the middle. I can't really see around this ref right here for Seattle, but I think there was a similar situation.
Yeah. I guess you call it a horde of Wildcats. What is a group of cats called? A den?
That's a great question.
I don't know. And that is going to be played, but it's going to be played out of bounds. That's going to be Wildcats' point. 22-17 now, only 3 points away. Just to finish this one up here for the Wildcats, it's going to have to be a strong presence at the net, which is a lot of what they've had so far in this game. And there's yet another error at maybe the worst possible time right there for the Red Hawks, just shooting it a bit too far out the back of the court. Two points away now. And that is going to be Wilkes on the left side, maybe looking to spike it a bit too hard, and spikes it right into the net. And man, this is just kind of a microcosm of the entire game, which is a bunch of these errors that have culminated in a lot of this deficit growing for Seattle U. And that is going to put it away. 25-17. ACU is going to come away with this one here in this WAC matchup, and is going to leave Seattle U winless in WAC play, and is going to maybe drive their team hopefully to a playoff berth here under first-year head coach Alyssa Blair. It was good back and forth on both sides of the net, but like we mentioned, ACU is able to get the sweep. Thank you for tuning into ESPN Plus and watching WAC Volleyball. I've been Cohen Carpenter here with Maddie Miller, and we are going to close it off here tonight. Thank you for watching here from Abilene, Texas.